Welcome back, College Prep Roadmap Series, week 13. Super excited to be back again. This has been a long series and very exciting and informative series. We have been talking about so many resources over the last few months. Fabulous resources to help your student through the college application process, the test prep process, mental health, over anxious, I mean, you name it. But the biggie, the elephant is in the room would be your student gets accepted. How are you going to pay for college tuition? So today's episode is how to pay for college tuition. And our guest is Keegan Ash. And I have to tell you that I met Keegan, which I think is pretty organic, through Facebook. These last 3 months, as we're quarantined, I have been reaching out and meeting some fabulous people across the country, which actually goes to tell you that virtual learning, virtual like Zoom meetings, you know what? It works. And so Keegan, I am so happy to have you because you are the go-to guru guy about financial aid. Now, just a little bit about Keegan. Keegan graduated from Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania with an economics major. I like the story because it just kind of tells you where he started and where he's at now. And his dreams, aspirations, ideas, just as a college student would be finance, business, economics major. He attended a boarding high school, loved his experience. So after college graduation, he was kind of exploring different options, and he is now working at a boarding school. He loved it. He appreciated it. He's able to connect with the students. So he was hired, and he was a teacher. He was a coach. He is now a counselor. So he and I have a lot of similarities, but he also uses his economics background and his passion for numbers to be the lead on the campus for the financial aid process. So that is why we have Keegan here today. I can't thank you enough. I know I already thanked you, but I really can't thank you enough because parents need answers, tips, and strategies.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Keegan. And let's just get started with let's just dive in. Let's just dive in here. And let's talk about like our current senior students, families that are, there's some money that they still need to find, and even our rising seniors. What can you do on the short term, or parents do for the short term student with regards to financial aid?
So, I mean, I'm sure your viewers have seen this through the process, and it's that question or the answer always is, it depends, right? And it's like the most frustrating thing because as counselors, we keep saying it to people. So I'll try to do as much as I can generically, but obviously it depends. But I would say, hey, you know what? We have a senior or, you know, a young student who just graduated, who's moving into college, and the parents are going, okay, we've got this gap, right? The gap, what is it? And what do we do with it? And I think that is an opportunity for a lot of parents to sit down and have a very honest, vulnerable conversation with their child, right? I never had that conversation with my parents. I didn't know the mistakes that we had made through the process. I wasn't aware of what my dad was going through, what my mom was feeling. And we never had any authentic, honest conversation about it. It was just like, it's going to get paid. That's not really the way we want to enter into this investment. That's what it is. It's an investment. Mm-hmm. And so I think that also led to me not taking advantage of everything that was at college because I didn't see it as an investment as well. So first thing, conversation. All right. I love telling people like that's the first place it's going to go, because I can give you every tip. I can give you every trick. I can give you every tactic. But if it's everyone doing different things, we're not going to get to the same. We're not going to get to where we want to go. So that being said, have that conversation with your child. But then obviously looking for how you want to pay for those gaps, right? And number one is going to be Parent Plus, in my opinion. For most people, is just applying for that Parent Plus loan, low interest rates, doing things like that. There are a number of different possibilities. I know we talked on the phone a little bit, just the difference between a home equity line of credit versus a home equity loan, and why a home equity line of credit is actually probably better than a home equity loan, because of assets and things like that. And we can get into the specifics. all of your students can obviously reach out to me and have those specific questions. But
absolutely, yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I would say first get that conversation and then start looking at and speak with, if the Parent Plus loan isn't going to work, I would speak to a financial advisor and say, okay, what is the best way for us to either leverage our assets in order to get loans at lower interest rates, or should we take out different private loans that don't necessarily have the collateral?
And you brought the Parent Plus loan up, which is fantastic. And I appreciate that, because I'm going to assume that most seniors in high school, parents and students, will have heard the acronym FAFSA. FAFSA, FAFSA, FAFSA. Now, a freshman parent or an 8th grade parent probably is like, what does that mean? And that, we're assuming, is already on file. It is a free form that you fill out your senior year. And by filling that FAFSA form out, parents and students, parents have the opportunity, if they need that Parent Plus loan. If the FAFSA is not on file, correct me if I'm wrong, that is not available to you. So you would go to a financial advisor, and say, okay, tell me a little, walk me through this FAFSA. It's pretty straightforward. Can you touch a little bit on it? Like, how long does it take to fill out? And is it overwhelming?
So I think it's not as overwhelming as when some of us went through the process. And so what I always say is January, when your son or daughter is in their sophomore year, January to December of their junior year, that is the calendar year that they're going to use to assess what we call your expected family contribution, which is how much the government expects you to be able to afford to pay for college, whatever that really means. But what we're going to do then is, in the past, what that was actually, they were using the next year. So it was really a tight turnaround. But now in October of your senior year, you're using the prior year's taxes. You're going to set up your FSA ID number with your student and the parent, and you're going to link those. And then for most people, the parent is going to just enter their social security number, and it's going to link to the IRS and pull that data for you. So you're not going through there going, well, what's line 37 minus line 5 plus 14 divided by 7, right? I don't know what that, right? It's not like that anymore. It's very much more straightforward, which is great for 99% of people. It can cause some challenges for some people.
Sure.
But I would certainly recommend, and there are certainly parents who will come to me and they'll say, you know what? We're not going to get financial aid. Okay. Fill out the FAFSA. And they're like, but we're not going to get I said, you need to fill out the FAFSA, because for some colleges, that FAFSA is used. And if they don't have it, you're not eligible for merit scholarship.
Thank you.
Like, so yes. So I say, what's the worst that happens?
Right.
You spent a total of 45 minutes to submit something. I think I'm okay with that. That's worth your investment.
100% agree. Thank you. Yep. Fill that baby out and just submit it. Why not?
Exactly. Your chance of getting financial aid is 0 if you don't send it out.
Exactly. So the families that are, and so filling out the FAFSA gives you this opportunity to borrow money through the federal government, and that's the Parent Plus loan. And the nice thing about the Parent Plus loan is, as you said, it's not another application necessarily. It's like all the information that they're using to see if you qualify or not is in the original FAFSA.
You're not redoing the process all over again.
Right, which makes it nice. And now the Parent Plus loan, the amount that you can borrow is the maximum amount of the cost of attending the school. Now, do you recommend a family taking out all of it and then seeing if they need it and then saying, I only need some of it? Or what do you recommend in terms of that if a family's not unsure?
Right. So I talk to a lot of, and this comes down to kind of philosophy and mindset. But I always talk to parents, and I'm like, you know what, if you borrow too much, do you have the discipline to not overspend? Right? Like, do you have the discipline to say, like, oh, we borrowed 20,000, we only used 18, let's take that 2,000, let's just pay back towards that loan now and we're good.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like, ooh, if we got it, we're going to spend it. It's like, okay, then we need to be very cautious about how much we take. And are you willing to pay out of pocket if it's short?
Good point.
Right. And so that's that cautionary tale that I have with parents. And it's the same conversation I have with students and parents about work study. Right. So you'll see that on their financial aid documents. Hey, you've been awarded work study. You get to work on campus. I say, whoa, you can either take that and say it's financial aid, or you can say, no, you're going to get a job. That's your spending money. We're going to take loans out in addition to work study because you're going to be, otherwise we're taking the money out and work study is going to pay for that. But then Sally or Johnny's calling home saying, Mom, I need pizza. I need to be able to buy things. And then you're paying money that way. So
that's a great point, because work study is something that will be offered if you fill the FAFSA out and you meet the requirements. This is something that would be available for your child to work on campus. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a choice, right? I was offered work study and never did it because my dad said, no, you're going to college, you're getting a degree, and you're playing football. You're going to do that. I don't want you doing anything else.
Okay.
Right? And so that gave us there was that option, but it wasn't guaranteed. And that's always one thing I always want to share with people. It's like, that's not guaranteed money, or that's a choice. If you do want to do it, that's a choice of how you want to spend the money. It doesn't necessarily always go right back towards tuition.
Very good. Very good. Because a lot of this stuff it can be confusing, but just know any money you borrow and it's for school goes to school. And having that conversation with your child and saying, you know what, this isn't a vacation. And a lot of times I have to talk to my students and be like, this isn't a 4-year getaway where I need to go buy clothes and I need this and I want to go away for the weekend and I'm going to go with my roommate here. It's like, hold on a minute. If those things, are available and it's doable, that's okay. But not when you're asking for money, spending money you don't have, and not seeing it as an educational experience. So it gets a little tricky. Yeah,
absolutely. But I always say, I said, clarity is never going to be a problem, right? Adding clarity and adding, a direction to what you're going through is never going to cause a problem for people. Right. That's just going to, So
that definitely makes sense. Now, a family and I'm going to go use the scenario for our seniors right now, or maybe even our rising seniors, our juniors that just finished. So there's still just a year, they've got a year, and then you got seniors that are going to be starting school in a couple months. Okay. And I get these questions all the time and they're legit. I totally get it. Okay. We've got the gap. We filled out scholarships. Okay. Keep filling out scholarships. That's an ongoing process. What if I want to pull out of my retirement plans? Or, I've got a 401k and I'm able to, take some money out there, but now you're going to have a penalty fee or this and that. Can you speak to that particular scenario, 403Bs and the 401ks? Yeah. If families are thinking about that, dipping into that pot.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things there. I have seen some people make huge mistakes. My father, I didn't know, took money out of his 401k to pay for me to go to college. Okay. I didn't find out until 5 years after I graduated college that he did that, which would incur, you have to pay taxes on all the money you take out as if it were income plus a 10% penalty. And I was like, wait, what? He goes, I didn't know what else to do. Right. He goes, that was the only option I'd had. And that was part of that was part of the financial planning that went into, my parents' plans was heavy retirement and not really any other liquid assets. Right. It was just like, let's just get to a point where we can retire.
Right.
And so for families understanding that, you're going, I always just say it's a little, I'm over emphasizing this point, but I'm like, any money you take out of your 401k, you're getting half your dollar's worth. Mm-hmm. Right. We're just, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but it's like, you're taking out 2 to pay for 1. The other thing, as I talk to parents, and this is going back to when I meet with parents and their children are 2 years old and they go, what do I need to do? I say, you need to take, like, just on an airplane, you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? Like it's okay for a child to have debt after college. It's okay. A mortgage after college is not ideal, right? A mortgage payment back to the college.
Right.
But I also say, I don't want you to have to move in with your child because you paid for their college. That, like, Billy and Sally are gonna go off to college, and they're, we want them to be successful, but you can't call them and say, hey, you remember when you went to Dickinson College? I gotta pay that all back now, and I don't have anything else.
Right.
So I'm moving in.
Yikes.
Right. And so which one do you think your kid wants, right? To have a little bit extra loans or have you moving in with them? I've seen it in my financial practice. I've seen, families that have come out and they said, yeah, we have nothing saved and I want to retire in 5 years. I'm like, then you can't. They're like, well, we paid everything for college. I'm like, that's great for your kids, but you're in trouble now, right?
But
like
you've got yourself into a little sticky situation.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you're putting that oxygen mask on yourself and then going through the other process.
So the 401k and the 403b, okay, again, it's not fully matured. You're taking it out. You're going to get a slap. You're going to get penalized. You're going to get a 10% fee penalty. Okay, so thank you for that. Avoid that at all costs. So what now, you would do.
There is the option sometimes, but it's using the assets of your 401k or your 403b to take a loan against it. So you're not taking money out of the account.
Right.
You're taking a loan with that same company and they're using that as your collateral.
Got it. Okay.
Again, not ideal. And I'm not saying that that's what people should do, but that's something to ask your financial advisor. That would be a question to ask them is, should I be taking the home equity line of credit against the equity I have in my home? Should I be taking this loan? And sometimes it just comes down to what are the fees and what's the interest rate?
Right. And if you get if the rates are low, and I think right now we've got some really low rates.
Yes.
I'm hearing about refinancing, families that I'm working with, refinancing, kind of moving some money around. COVID, the pandemic did not help a lot of financial situations at home. So there's been that concern and that fear. Do I even send my student to college for a year? Should I, that's a whole different episode.
I mean, that's a great question. That's a great, I'm going to pivot there for a second on that one because our rising seniors, I want them to understand, and I don't mean this I'm just trying to provide clarity. I'm not trying to fear or anything like that, promote that, but understanding that our rising seniors, their families are using their 2019 tax returns to get their estimations for financial aid. Now, for a large majority of Americans right now, 2019 looked great.
Oh, yes.
Okay. 2019, right? Versus 2020.
Got it. Sorry.
2019, that was like ages ago, it feels like. You know what I mean?
Yes.
How many years ago was that? And so having that understanding of just going like, oh, okay, they're not going to see what 2020 is. Now, there is a place in FAFSA for you to fill out, like, have you gone through any recent hardships or stuff like that? But I think too often, and it's getting better as the parents are getting younger and we're moving into that, out of the baby boomers into the Gen X.
Yes.
They're a little bit more willing to be vulnerable about their financial situation, right? Like I've had some baby boomers who are like, I will never share my financial information with someone. Like, no. Right? Like that's just a secret.
Yes. I'm keeping it close to my vest.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But I've seen parents going like, okay, no, you know what? This is the situation. I just need advice. And I'm not going to just put my head in the sand. I want to know. But have that conversation with those colleges because they're going to be having many of them. I've seen some colleges are actually putting out additional forms, like a COVID financial form. That is just very specific. Like, tell us what 2020 is looking like so that we know.
I love it. I love that. I mean, we didn't ask to be furloughed. We didn't ask for a salary cut. It just happened. It just happened to us. So why not take advantage? Be transparent. Let the colleges know so that they can meet you. Hopefully halfway or more. And you're going to see parents that just kind of fill it out and they just are very passive about it.
And you're going to see
Yeah.
other parents that say, hey, listen, not demanding, we're not looking for that, but just saying, hey, here's our current situation, guide us.
Right.
We want to be at your institution. We want to be giving you our money, but there's some give and take here. This is a two-way street. And
Right.
Colleges are going to be measured this year, I believe, on how they respond to those. But you don't know until you ask.
We don't know until we ask. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. And, one thing about the FAFSA, and I keep going back to that, because that's kind of the foundational form, is it's required every year to be completed again. It's renewable. You have to fill it out so that you can have the option of having that Parent Plus loan, or be evaluated if you're eligible for any of the, grant money or any work study.
Grants. Yep.
Yes. And I have 4 children, and my youngest will be a senior in college. I think I've mentioned this a couple times, a couple episodes. So, but I filled out that FAFSA every single year. And I love the fact that you said a lot of families go, we don't qualify. There's 2 adults. We both have jobs and we own property. We are ineligible. And it's like, oh, I get it. But you know what? There is merit money, academic money that is connected to that FAFSA, and without the information. So
and that's not across the board.
Right.
But I think for some families, why would you wait to find out that a college is saying, no, we don't give merit unless we have a FAFSA. Right.
I love that. I just reinforcing that. So I'm so glad that we're on the same page. Now let's talk about, and then scholarships. So students that are in college, now they're freshmen in college, and they're still, 4 years of college. So we're paying for 4 years. It's not just a one-time deal. Do you recommend them to get to the financial aid office, or where can they find ongoing money as a college student?
So there's different advice for different students, right? So if you had come to me when I was in college and said, hey, Keegan, I need you to be filling out these essays, I need you to be searching for these things, that would have broken me, right? Like, that would have been like, whoa. I'm trying to figure out advanced macroeconomics with a guy who's teaching it in the 6th language. That's all I'm doing right now. And so understanding your child, right? And I think too often our parents, and I'm including myself in this because I have children, is saying, hey, we need more. And it's like, whoa. No, right now, your job is just go, right? Just work and just do your thing and be in a state of joy, right? Like, do your work. I'm not saying be happy, but be in a state of joy, right? Constant, that's it. And I think for a lot of families, one of the things is looking at where are the opportunities. So for me, being in college, having my degree, I mean, I'm not the most cerebral person when I was at 19 years old, I think. But to say, what are the opportunities available to you? And I think the missed opportunities for a lot of parents to save money in college is summer courses. And they're like, oh, but we need to be applying for scholarships and these things and this. And I was like, whoa, yes, maybe we get you $1,000 scholarship, but you taking 2 summer courses is going to, at a community college that will then transfer to your university, is going to save you thousands of dollars. So where's the better investment, right? And even if you're taking that in the summer, you can fill out some essay scholarship, things like that. Sure. But those are outside your control. Right, you have complete control over taking a college course that is a gen ed, and you can just take it, and boom, I've got credit there. Right. So that's where I talk to some parents. I mean, I have some students that say, "Hey, I'm going to start a business in college." It's like, yeah, that's great for you, right? For you. And then I have some parents that are like, "I need my daughter to start a business," and I'm like, "No, because she doesn't want to do that, and you're just creating a burden, not an opportunity." Right. Right. Nicely. That's a good example. Very good. Coming from the child is one thing. Coming from the parent is a whole different conversation. Yeah. And the energy. Their goal is to be successful in college so they can have the job to then pay back the loans if they have them. Right. So. Right. The community college classes in the summer, that is great. It is and I have seen, and I'm hearing more students doing that. So
families that are watching, if you have a freshman in high school or a sophomore in high school, have that conversation. Just be like, you know what, your job as a student will entail a few things besides just going to class. But maybe in the summer when you come home, you're going to take a class online or a class in person, and maybe even have a part-time job. And we need you to put $500 away, or
I love, have you seen the Arizona State Global Freshman Academy at edX.com?
No.
So Arizona State's just like, here's 2 courses. You pay $50 to take the course. If you complete it, you pay, I think, $200 a credit. And it's Arizona State credit.
Wow, that is fabulous. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, one's like college algebra, college algebra, pre-calculus. It's a couple of courses like that. There are opportunities like that out there.
And if we're going to talk about opportunities in high school, let's do it. AP. I know this 2020 AP cycle was a disaster.
Yep.
But you take an AP course and you do decent, 3 or higher. Depending on the college, that could also advance you, and you may have to, you'd be able to eliminate a couple of your gen ed, which every dollar, I know this so well. I mean, I think I'm going to celebrate. I think I'm actually going to get the diploma when my kid gets it in a year.
You're the one that deserves it.
It's not about you. It's about Dad and I.
So it's funny because you were talking about the APs. I had a student from Pennsylvania who went out to University of California school system, called me in a panic, like ready, like in tears. And he goes, I think I screwed everything up. And I said, what happened? Right. Cause I did all the paperwork. I'm like, I hope nothing got screwed up. And he goes, they're telling me, he's like, I just got off the plane. They're telling me I'm a second semester sophomore. And I'm like,
good job.
You are a second semester sophomore because your APs were all accepted for credit. And he was like, wait, what? And I went, you have 2.5 years to get a 4-year degree. He's like, well, what do I do? I went, get a master's. And he was like, oh, okay. And, we had a nice conversation. He's like, I can now double major. I can study abroad. I can, take a semester off. And
fabulous options. How lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I said, calm down, take a deep breath. 99% of college freshmen right now would like to trade spots with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. He was.
I was referring to 2 classes. I mean, this kid's a rock star. It's like
he was. Yeah, he was a rock star.
And just again, I'm going to go back to that. It's like, parents, don't feel uncomfortable. Don't feel that you're being too vulnerable and sharing too much with your family, your kids, when you're talking about this, because it is a big investment. It's not a 1-year thing. This is 4 and sometimes 5, depending on if you change your major or transfer colleges, which happens. We don't want that to happen, we just for financial and time, but that's life. That's the reality of it.
Yeah. I would definitely advise parents to analyze and question their mindset and their emotions when they go into these conversations, because their children will mirror them. Right. So when I talk to them about their financial conversations, if you go into it with a scarcity mindset or a stress, and you're stressed out and everything is that there's not enough, then that's all your child's going to feel. If you say, hey, this is what we've got. This is exciting. Here's what we can offer. We're so proud that we can give you $5,000 a year, which I know that's not going to pay for everything, but we're so excited. We got $5,000. What questions can we answer? Now you're coming from a different spot, and now your child's going like, okay, here's where we are.
I love that. Yes. Just that positive energy, because then your student's going to take it, transfer it, and go, okay, let's make this happen.
That's $5,000 more. That's $5 more than Gary's parents are giving them, right? You're like, you don't know.
Right.
But again, you don't want, ignorance is not bliss, right? Ignorance is ignorance.
Ignorance is not bliss. It's awareness and all that. Now, so high school families, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, well, seniors are off to college. It's going to vary. It will vary depending on your income, depending on the price tag, but also, be mindful, be intentional when you're looking at colleges, taking maybe this summer to explore colleges online, or maybe even like drive by a school if they're having tours or whatever, but look at that price tag. And if that price tag is just really like astronomical and it's your student's number one choice, Well, you know what? We don't always get our first choice. There are fabulous colleges and universities. Agree, Keegan, in terms of that price tag, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell the parents, I'm like, well, I use some foul language. I won't use that here, but I don't care. I don't care what the sticker price is, right? I care what your price is going to be for that college. And I think that's the conversation to have with people. And that's one thing. I'm in the land of liberal arts colleges, right? Like I can throw a stick and hit 3 liberal arts colleges around me. But they are $70,000 a year. Now, my students may be paying $16,000 a year. But that sticker price pushes a lot of families away. And I'm like, well, that number, that sticker price is what they're valuing their education at. But they're not charging that for every family necessarily.
Very good. Yes.
But to have that conversation with, hey, here's where we think your number is. Like, here's where we feel as a family comfortable. $35,000 a year, right, is what we feel comfortable with, because that will give you about $10,000 of loans a year, and we can afford the rest. That conversation is great right after you finish your junior year. It is really, really hard, and it's filled with tears after your child gets accepted to their dream school, and now you have to have that conversation with them.
100% agree, right? That's just timing.
I've had some students walk in my office, and they're like, they've had the conversation, and their parents are like, hey, we think $30,000 that's what we think is the right number.
Right.
They come in their top school, $65,000 a year, and they go, well, it was my dream school, but numbers are numbers, and they can put it away, and they can look at it a little more objectively. But parent B is, I don't want to provide that clear. I don't want to be vulnerable because I feel that if I can't pay full out, I've failed as a parent. That's not true, right? But now your child's coming going, I got into my dream school, and you're going to go, you can't go there now. Now you're the bearer of bad news, not the college the bearer of bad news.
Right. Before submitting an application, just that the emotion, the energy, even though the student may be like, oh, this is cool, the application, an essay, no big deal. It's time and energy, and they're connecting. And if it's a school of their choice, they've just gone through those steps. And then all of a sudden it's like slap. And it's like, we need to be
everything. Yeah. I mean, it should be part of the I mean, you can't really mandate it, but it should be part of the process that every family fill out at least one net price calculator. Right. And this is a mandate, right? That every single college must have a net price calculator on their website. So it is required. It's sometimes very difficult to find the net price calculator.
I was just going to ask you, where can I mean, I know where it's at, but talk to that. Where is it?
I Google it. I just Google it. I put the college name, net price calculator, and it is, I would say 99% of the time, it's one of the first 3 choices, right? One of the first 3. I say, because you can get lost. I've never tried to find Dickinson's. I just Google it, and that's where I go, right? I'm using them as an example because I'm selfish. Right. But that would be the place to go. And just because it's good for parents to have that clarity, like, oh, they're expecting us to pay this much. It's like, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, net price calculator, what the parent is filling out, completing, and what they're going to end up finding out?
Yeah. So a net price calculator, the parents are going to go on and basically kind of like pre-fill out a FAFSA in a way. It's a little bit of a longer form, but they're putting in basically just their income, how many students are in college, the basics, but they're just typing those things in. That is not recorded. The college doesn't get to really see that. They don't get to but it gives you an estimate of what that college would expect you or would probably be giving you in the future. I always like to do that because it's another check in the process. Because hey, you fill out a net price calculator at a college, and then the college comes back and they give you something vastly different. Well, now I have a net price calculator form that I can print out and say, why is this saying this and this saying this?
Oh, good. Yes.
Right. And so now the college, let's reevaluate, right? Maybe something got mixed up. There was an extra 0, whatever.
Right.
It's another thing, and it's just providing more clarity, and it gives you a little bit of insurance in that process in case.
I absolutely agree. I tell my families the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like, don't be surprised. Just know upfront, be
Yep.
surprised. I mean, not be surprised.
Yeah.
Now, families, another question that I'm getting often would be the 529s, the 529 plan.
Yep.
The difference between, I have my little notes here, the 529 plan and then the educational savings account. Now, I know one's got like the income limited, there's a limiter there. Can you talk a little bit about those two, which would be places where they can, families can put money away until their child goes to college and they've got their little college fund aside? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have a lot of families that really like the 529. So in my financial business, we don't really talk too much about educational savings accounts.
Okay.
As much, because it's not a vehicle that we really promote as much, because I don't think there's as many benefits to it, especially long-term, right? In the financial world, we're talking about longer term, because when I meet with some of my financial clients, I'm like, your child's 2. What are we doing? Right.
Sure.
And so there's a couple. The 529 is great because it can be used without penalty, without taxes on the growth. And there are some high limits on those 529s, which this is 2020. So I believe it's $15,000 per child per parent.
Okay.
529 is owned by one guardian, one child. Now you can transfer it to different children, but you can't transfer back. There's all these rules. But a mother can own a 529 for Billy, and a father can own a 529 for Billy as well. And they can each put $15,000 in.
So you're saying that there is a limit amount of money that you can put in per month? So
you can put that would be a yearly.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
it's the gift amount, right? You can gift up to $15,000.
This is there. Got it. It's the 529 plan is for Billy, and mom, the parent, is putting the money in every year. And then when 18, 19 years of age comes rolling around, they have that for college. Okay.
Yeah. Now the 529s have actually changed. So you can actually use it for high school now. For private, you can use 529 money for high schools. That wasn't the case a few years ago.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. I did not know about that. That's why that's why you're talking and I'm not.
And then the other one that, people can ask a financial advisor for is it's called a universal transfer to minors account or ACT account, or a universal gift to minors account, depending on the state. It's either an UTMA or an UGMA. And that's a really nice vehicle for parents like me, right? My oldest is 7, right? So I don't know what college is going to look like in 11 years. I don't know what college is going to look like in 3 years, right? I don't know what college is going to look like. So is that a better vehicle to save on the growth, like on the taxes, but not, force me to be paying it into education?
Got it.
Because at 20, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
They're both, I kind of interrupted you. They're both, those plans would be the 529 plan and then that one that you just talked about, that acronym. Both of those are set aside for college, you said, specifically?
So the UGMA and UTMA actually gives you more flexibility on how you're going to spend it at the end.
Okay, gotcha.
My daughters, may say, oh, you know what, I don't need the savings for college, but I want to start a business, or I want a down payment on my home. I can use those. They can be used for college.
Gotcha.
But,
more flexible.
They're a little more flexible. There's always pros and cons, right? If there was only pros for the UTMA, then you would get rid of it. But a percentage of the assets that are counted under the UGMA is higher in the FAFSA than the 529. Okay. So that's why it would show a greater amount of money available to pay for college under an UGMA or UTMA than under a 529. So that's the benefits.
Okay.
So
then then if I am a parent and I am looking at my assets, you just brought up assets, and I have my 529 plan or my UGMA account for my child, and now I'm filling out the FAFSA and I'm hoping that I'm going to be eligible for any need-based. Will those two plans pretty much disqualify me for any need-based?
So understand that the majority of the FAFSA is determined on income.
Right.
That's what they're really looking at. That's the biggest factor.
Okay.
And they're going to look at family income, right? That's the number one thing. They're going to look at family income. They're going to look at child income, and then they're going to look at assets.
Okay.
So that's the majority of it. And that brings up a little thing that I've kind of I didn't avoid, but I missed, is understanding the CSS profile as well.
Oh yeah.
And so the CSS profile would be a separate form for financial aid. Now the CSS profile is only used at, a few hundred schools or 100 schools or something like that. And the CSS profile, that's a conversation to have with a college counselor in saying, is the CSS profile going to help me or hurt me or have no impact? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that process, I had one family who, they used the CSS profile to apply for school, and it said, you're eligible for nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get no financial aid. And that was because they owned their income, I think was like $19,000 a year, right? Very, very low income, but over $2 million worth of real estate.
Oh, so they have a lot of assets. I mean, their assets are right. Okay.
So the CSS profile can ask about anything. They can ask about all these questions. Now, on the flip side, I have some families that say, hey, we have this income. The CSS profile can now show me that I'm taking care of 3 elderly grandparents. They all live with me. I have them. I have a child with special needs. I have all of these other things. It can give us some more specifics and help you because you're eligible for more financial aid.
Right.
So just understanding the balance of that CSS profile. For some people, they say, oh, no, the CSS profile is really not going to help me. For others, they say, oh, we really want to focus on schools that have the CSS profile as a requirement.
And the CSS profile, as you mentioned, is required by only a small group of typically private schools. Your public schools are not off asking for that.
No.
And, they're basically wanting, like you said, they want more information. The FAFSA is pretty generic. They get what they need. They're crunching numbers, income, taxes. But now they're like, tell me about Granny. Granny lives with you? And they just want to see if there's institution money or more money. And then another thing is that when families, find out at the end what their estimated family contribution is based on that fancy formula and they crunch all the numbers, don't ever hesitate to make that phone call to financial aid and have a heart-to-heart conversation. If there's something else that you need to share with them, or if you're trying to, appeal, it comes off kind of strong, but just have a conversation to say, wow, based on numbers is one thing, but the reality is another. And it'd be nice if we could, maybe if we could talk about maybe a little bit more money for our son or daughter. Don't you agree?
I think you bring up an amazing point about the appeal, right? We talk about the appeal.
Yes.
And one thing I wanted to let every parent, and I didn't want any parent to leave here without understanding, number one, colleges are competing. They are competing for your child. And number two, you own your financial aid documents. Right. So I get a lot of parents who are like, oh, I can't share what the college, like, no. You own that document that has your name on it. The college, there's no confidentiality there on your side, right? The college can't share your information, but you can share that information. I saved a student $30,000 in 30 seconds because we sent one college's financial aid documents to another college. And that college is like, well, now we found a little more money. We want to get you. And they can bring it down, right? And that's some people feel uncomfortable about that, but it's also, hey, it's your job as the college to provide me with clarity on the finances. Here are 3 other documents. Can you help? And I will caution that Penn State's not going to take the time to answer that question for you. Right. The smaller the school, the more flexibility you have with that.
Absolutely.
The bigger schools is just a number game.
Right.
Here's your number. Yeah.
And the appeal. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me that, because I have to remind myself that every day. That's a good point. But the appeal is if you have an award amount of money, financial money, scholarship, merit, whatever, and it's say significantly more than college B,
Yep.
why not show college B that college A provided you $10,000 more? I mean, like you said, it's like, it doesn't hurt. You hear stories that say, you don't want to come off sassy because then that school may say, well, then go to that school. It's the way you deliver it. It's,
right.
I just want to share this with you. And this school B, you're my number one. And the only way that we can make this happen is to bridge this gap. And so this is something that I like to share with you. Yes, it is an option for us to look at college B.
Yeah.
But we really want to have that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. For a lot of parents, it's like, hey, college B, I'm trying to explain this to my son or daughter, and, we are trying to make the best financial decision. Their heart is set on you. Can you help us here?
Right.
And one thing I always tell people is I say this, especially if you're looking at small schools, go to the football schedule. Go to the football schedule of a small school or any sport, but I like football because it's a really short list. And those are their competing colleges. Those are the colleges that they're competing with in sports, but also they're competing for applicants. And I said, if you're going to apply and this is your favorite choice, just pick 2 other schools on there and apply to them. Right?
Just because, yeah.
Well, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's like you may fall in love with one of the other ones because they're similar. They're going to be similar in size. They're going to probably have the same kind of location.
Right.
I really love them. But if you are saying, hey, this is where my heart is set, and parents, you're like, I can't get him or her off this college, go back to the football schedule and say, well, why don't we look at this school and this school? Because that's where you can actually get, I don't want to say a bidding war, but that's where you can get some actual ones. If I go to a small private liberal arts college here and I say, hey, look what the University of Oregon offered me, they don't care.
They're like, right.
Like they
apples
go
to apples.
Yeah, I want apples to apples. And that's why I always say, hey, go look at the football schedule and you'll see apple to apple.
Great. That's a great point. That's a great point because you just never know that conversation. And they just go, oh, you mean you're talking about the Bearcats?
Yeah.
or the whoever.
I've had people go, what? Send me that document. I want to see it. And I'm like, okay, here's your competing school, and here's how they're delivering their financial aid. And they will call back and they'll say, oh, you know what? We have changed the document. Because they're doing this all blind, right? Colleges are blind to this. They're not calling up their competitors and going, what are you offering, Jimmy? Oh, right. I'm going to offer them this much. So you're just providing the college more clarity, and they want you as a student. They want your money. They want you in their, they want to fill a bed. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And another comment to students is, we're talking about the parents and them saving it when the child's at a young age, or panicking when they get to 8th grade or 9th grade and maybe they didn't have the means. And it's not even a panic. It's the reality is, there wasn't any extra money. We're doing everything we can. We're providing. So parents should never feel, ashamed or they're not doing their job or anything like that. Because I know, loans, I get it. But you know what, students, your job is high school. Your job, I always say, high school is your job, your paycheck is your report card or your transcript. And it's like, that's your way to contribute to the bottom line. So when senior year comes floating around, now you have something to say. You've contributed to this. So maybe you can just, take it up a notch. You can, rise to the occasion and do what you can. And maybe you already are. I don't mean to put students on the, hot seat. But
no, I think that's a conversation, and I will caution this. That's a very, very difficult conversation for a parent to have. And I think that's one of the values of having someone like you, Doreen, in there so that you can have that conversation with the parent or the child.
Right.
And say, if I gave you $2 million, could you get a 4.0? Right. And every student I've ever asked that, they go, yeah. I said, okay, then you don't have an inability. You have a lack of priority. And they just like, oh, I'm like, if I gave you $2 million to get a 4.0, you would find a way. You would do whatever you could to do it. If you're not willing to, that's a separate issue.
That's all.
Right. And if parents have that conversation with people or their child, that can kind of, that puts a little slice in the rope of the relationship, I like to say. I mean, I'm like, but that's kind of the value of having someone else externally.
Right.
But I've told some kids, I'm like, you get A's, that's 20 grand. And I think if parents want to do this because they say, hey, I really want to show my kid that's where you start a raise.me account. And you force the child to see the value of their grades in real time.
Yes.
In ninth grade.
I've heard that. Yes.
I love using that website for young students. They're like, oh my God, my A in science got me $500.
Talk a little bit about that. That's a great point. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so raise.me, it's just .me, not .com. And it's honestly, I look at it as a marketing website. Here's an opportunity for colleges who don't have the brand recognition across the country, but say, we want to get in front of these students early. And so it works on a couple levels. One, it exposes parents and students to a number of colleges, right? I always say there's 3,762 colleges in the US. I made that number up, but I think it's somewhat close.
It's 4.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. It's like 4,000. Yeah. But the average American can only name maybe 100.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, okay, here's an opportunity for colleges to just get their name in front of some people. No, they're not playing on NBC on Saturdays, and they're not one of the bumper sticker colleges. And so what we want to do is like, okay, we want to get our names out there. So, but it also allows students to say, here's everything I've done. Here's all the activities. Here are all the grades. Here's everything. And they're staying really, really, really organized. And they're seeing what colleges value their traits. So I have students every year come in and they go, I've never heard of this college. Tell me about it. Because they just want to send me $1,000. Raise.me, similar to that net price calculator, you can use that to verify your financial aid documents. Wait, you said I would be awarded $30,000 in merit aid. You gave me 20. We need to fix this.
Very good.
And that could be a huge gap for families as well.
Love that. I love it. I've heard of that. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's just knowledge, awareness, conversation, all the stuff we've been talking about.
Confidence. Yep.
It really kind of, now we've covered a lot. I think if parents were listening, I think there's some good takeaways, some sound advice. All of the comments that we talked about, takeaways, contact information for Keegan, everything will be in the comment section. So that's all there. It will be posted on College Prep Roadmap, and it will be there forever. There's a series of 13, and it'll also be it's going to be uploaded onto YouTube as well. But Keegan, any closing remarks or reminders or anything that we didn't touch on that something burning, a message?
I would say divorced parents, you both do not fill out the FAFSA.
Right.
And if it's joint custody, figure out which one of you has less income. And be honest, I'm sorry if you haven't spoken, and if you need to go through a mediator, but the one who has the lower income, fill out the FAFSA. And then if both parents want to have a conversation of how they want to contribute on the back end after loans are taken out. But that's a huge mistake. Also, grandma's 529, if it's a non-parent 529 or non-guardian 529, you don't use that until you fill out your last FAFSA.
Your last FAFSA.
Yep.
Your rising senior in college.
Yes.
Got it.
Yep. And then just spend all of that money. And we can talk about the loophole, but if you spend it on freshman year, because grandma wants to spend it on freshman year, all of that money is counted as child income, and then they can assess 50% more of that for sophomore year. So if grandma contributes $10,000, they want an extra $5,000 in sophomore year.
Oh, good to know. So last year is when grandma's 529 is going to come into play. Divorced parents of the two who has the lower income, you are the one that will be on that FAFSA. That income will be evaluated for the EFC, estimated family contribution. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, we saved someone $40,000 at least.
I mean, shoot, I hope so, or even more. Thank you again, Keegan. I cannot thank you enough for all these insider, behind the curtain secrets. Again, thank you, viewers. It's been fabulous. College Prep Roadmap every week coming your way to bring you good information, resource, and connections and everything during this pandemic. And all of Keegan's information will be in the comment section. Thank you. You guys have a great day, and we will talk soon, and we are going to sign off. Thank you.